Supreme Court makes its website accessible. The Supreme Court is the first government website in Indonesia to be made accessible by applying the international standards for people with visual impairment who use screen reader software. First, the starting point. At the APJ Partners Conference in April 2013, informal discussion took place between the AIPJ team leader and the director of Mitra Netra. Mitra Netra, or www.mitranetra.or.id, is a foundation that works on education and accessible information for people with visual impairment and who are blind. Discussions took place about ways to make information on the Supreme Court website about legal cases and proceedings accessible for people who use screen reading technology. The AIPJ Disability Technical Coordinator endorsed the idea, and AIPJ senior management discussed the idea at a senior level with the Supreme Court. It was then agreed that the project be implemented. Mitra Netra does make the observation that in the early stages when the decision to implement the project was made and during the design phase, it was really AIPJ that was an initiator and driver of the project. Mitra Netra was contracted by AIPJ to provide technical assistance advice, and the maintenance section of the Supreme Court was designed with responsibility to manage the project. Because the Supreme Court does not manage its own maintenance, an external technical consultant in programming was contracted by the Supreme Court to work with Mitra Netra on the project. The Supreme Court is the first government institution to have an internal regulation on public information in Indonesia. At the time the AIPJ project started, the Changes for Justice, or C4J program, was working with the Supreme Court in support of the court's effort to increase transparency and accountability, including increased public access to information through its internal regulation. SKI 144/2011. However, during the planning phase of the AIPJ project, there was no engagement with the C4J program, which was at the time in its final stages of implementation. The USAID-funded program ended in April 2014. Second, progressing making information accessible. It took time for the project to begin. This was largely due to the work that had been planned to fitting in with the existing approved plans of the relevant sections and levels of the Supreme Court. This meant that there were no designed resources for this activity. Mitra Netra began their work with the staff who hold responsibility for the maintenance of the Supreme Court's website, and with the head of the Bureau of Public Relations in September 2013. The leadership of both sections were very supportive and committed to the project. The consultant contracted by the Supreme Court was also very enthusiastic about the work. Mitra Netra worked closely with the technical consultant, mentoring and supporting him in the redesigned process for the website. This was the first time that he had applied the international W3 access standards. In http://www.w3.org/WCA-G20/quickref/ in his design work. He was very enthusiastic and was particularly motivated by the fact that he was responsible for completing the first accessible government website in Indonesia. He is keen to promote his skills and knowledge and hopes that as he does many contracts for the Supreme Court and other government agencies, that he will be able to apply this new knowledge in future projects. Mitra Netra became aware of the C4J work facilitating standards for accessible information with the primary and secondary level courts. Meetings were held with the staff who had responsibility for this work. These meetings, even though they occurred at the time the C4J was very close to completion, were very helpful. Due to delays in implementing, Mitra Netra could not complete all the activities that were contracted by AIPJ to do. AIPJ could not extend the contract with Mitra Netra. This meant that certain activities were not completed, including the access audits of the new site, planned to be completed by people with visual impairment and who are blind of the new site, and the official launch of the new site, which was expected to be an awareness-raising and advocacy activity. The Supreme Court did officially launch the site later in March 2015. The strategies that were used. Skills and expertise of people with visual impairment were used to raise awareness and provide knowledge about screen reading technology and accessible communication. Networking between partners facilitated by AIPJ supported the action on disability inclusion. Financial and technical resources made available through AIPJ enabled the activity to take place. Factors that supported the positive changes. Interest and dedication of key individuals involved in the project. The project lead, by Ibu Arya from Mitra Netra, is herself a person with visual impairment and a lawyer. Her inputs and experience helped to increase awareness and interest on access issue for the Supreme Court staff. Factors that did not support the changes as had been expected or created challenges. Lack of alignment and connection of this project with other existing programs and approved work plans meant it was not integrated into the wider reform process taking place in the Supreme Court. The project was driven by a few individuals but was not formally part of approved work plans, made it difficult for section to commit to the work, and reduced broader ownership of the project, which have negative implications for longer-term sustainability. Delays in the work being implemented due to challenges in getting Supreme Court staff engaged meant that the time frame overran and some important components of the work were not implemented, including the checking of the access by user groups and the socializing and publicity and advocacy of the new site. Lack of support of the project by AIPJ advisors and team who work with the Supreme Court meant that it was difficult initially to get the right people from the Supreme Court involved, and this slowed down the implementing of the project. Third, the changes that have occurred. The main website of the Supreme Court now meets the international access standards, and it is the first Indonesian government website that does. The Supreme Court has published the new access features, and there is interest from our other courts, provincial and district, to make their sites accessible too. Some courts have started to work and others have expressed interest to include access in their plans and budget that will be submitted for approval. The Supreme Court has said that the website will be kept up to date and they will ensure accessibility in the maintenance and revisions due to take place during 2016. The staff are now aware of the needs of access for people with visual impairments and are keen to see the project expand and for the websites of other courts be made accessible and introduce other ways that people with disability can access information. One example is a screen reader has been installed in the lobby of the Supreme Court that people with disability can access. This service still needs to be published to the target user group. The Minister of Technology and Communication has been made aware of the site and he has expressed interest in ensuring all government site meets these standards. Mitra Netra gained experience from completing this project and has been approached by other organizations, including LBH Jakarta, for information on how to make their website accessible. Fourth, key lessons learned. Important to engage and work with people within an organization who have influence and are interested in disability inclusion to help ensure there is genuine interest and ownership of a project. It is important to project links with other related programs and fits with an overall organizational strategy to help ensure wider reach and sustainability of the outcomes. Socializing and advocacy of the process and outcomes is very important to raise awareness and support of wider take-up of the activity. People with disability leading the activities help create stronger interest and help to raise awareness and motivate participation. Recognition that government has certain systems and processes that need to be adhered to strictly that may influence the timing of implementation of planned joint activities.